Hello everybody, welcome back, or welcome aboard for the very first time. It is Friday afternoon, it is 1:30pm here in glorious Melbourne, which must mean it is time for the preview show. Yes, the round 12 preview is now in your ears and in your eyes. 5 big games to preview for the round ahead. One massive game last night to unpack. But before we get stuck into all of that, I must talk about what happened last Friday. No, it wasn't Essendon's victory over Richmond at Dreamtime by the G. It was an interview between myself, Tony Jones and Matthew Lloyd. To say that I was shocked, surprised and over the moon would probably be an understatement. To me, one of my broadcasting, heroes, probably an overstatement. Someone I've admired in the broadcasting realm for a long time in Tony Jones, the great newsreader and sportscaster from Channel 9. And of course, one of my childhood heroes in Matthew Lloyd, the Velvet Sledgehammer himself, the best forward to ever play for the Essendon Football Club, was really a dream come true. The fact that those two beautiful and brilliant gentlemen gave me their time before they did a live cross on the Channel 9 news was honestly quite surreal. They were so lovely. They gave me plenty of rope. They were willing to indulge my questions and my real Essendon nuffery on this occasion. So yes, thank you to Matthew Lloyd. Thank you to Tony Jones. It was such a great treat. I'm assuming for them to meet me, the host of Slam Talk Sports, but it was an even bigger treat for me to meet both of them. Now, let's talk about the Essendon Football Club. Let's talk about Thursday night football. Unfortunately, my Bombers went down to the Brisbane Lions by 18 points at the Gabba last night. What was the final score? Was it 90-72? But I'm sure Essendon lost no admirers and probably picked up a few along the way. It was a gutsy performance from an undermanned and depleted Essendon side to missing pretty much all of their backline. There was no Zach Reid, there was no Jordan Ridley, and there was no Ben Mackay. In fact, we have a little clip coming out later today on the Slam Talk Sports Instagram and potentially the TikTok from Ben Mackay this morning at the biggest morning tea. I know that happened last week. It was the 22nd of May. It was, I think, advertised for most people across Australia to support and hopefully generate some money and some funds towards cancer research. But Essendon had a function earlier today at Windy Hill, which Ben Mackay spoke about his foot injury, the young players that are coming through the side, Brad Scott's coaching and what he's learned at Essendon. I'll bring that out on the socials later today. But back to last night's game. Obviously, no Mackay, no Ridley, no Reid, but Essendon's defence somehow stuck strong against this brilliant Brisbane Lions team. Unfortunately, in the end, when the whips got cracking, the guns got rolling. In the third quarter, it was Hugh McCluggage. It was a little bit of Dunkley and Neil, who were well down on the night, but had a big impact in the third and fourth quarter. It was Kai Lohmann kicking 3 goals naturally against Essendon after not kicking a goal all season. But really, Essendon performed marvellously last night. Probably the biggest tick besides the young players like Angus Clark and Zach Johnson, who played, I think, pretty well last night considering the circumstances, is the form of the wizard, Nicholas Martin. I think the touches at the end was like, let's get up the DFS stats, actually. Let's get up the stats from last night's game. You know what? I'm actually a little bit more prepared this week. Bang! There they are. So last night, Nick Martin had 29 disposals and 2 goals. I know the All-Australian team isn't picked, in May, but right now, he's in the All-Australian side. He starts on a half-forward flank, he then runs back as an extra behind the ball. He plays centre bounce, he plays in the forward line, he kicks goals, he does it all. I just love what Nick Martin has brought to this team. And is a SSP signing, a supplementary selection player, I think that's what it's called, I got it at that time. He's been such a great pickup for the Essendon Football Club. And yeah, besides him, no one else really dominated last night. Besides, of course, Jai Caldwell, who had, 17 disposals in the third quarter alone, breaking an Essendon record. He was very good. He got the Dunkley tag in the fourth quarter. But really, it was Martin and Caldwell which stood up for the Bombers last night and got them so close to victory against the Brisbane Lions. I'm watching the replay right now. Essendon still had plenty of chances to win it in the final quarter. They were down 5 points with 11 minutes left before Archie Roberts missed the shot, which would have put them up and put the pressure back on the Brisbane Lions. But all in all, a very good performance from Essendon. Brisbane just find a way to win, though, unfortunately. I mean, they're 9 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw to North Melbourne down at Ninja Stadium in Tasmania. But those 2 losses have come at the Gabba against Collingwood on Easter Thursday and against the Melbourne Football Club only a few weekends ago. Brisbane just had this uncanny knack to win close games, which was obviously not the case the prior years when they kept losing all those finals. They lost games at the MCG. They had a poor finals record of getting to the top of the ladder, the top two, and then ultimately falling short. Now they've become very much the clutch kings. They just find a way to eke out results in the final quarter or the second half of games. But yeah, Brisbane look pretty good. They're deservedly top of the ladder. There's a few other teams nipping at their heels, the likes of the Gold Coast Suns and the Collingwood Football Club, who will reclaim top spot if they win tonight. But yeah, a very good performance from the Essendon Football Club, and ultimately a win the Brisbane Lions needed to have, and they got because they are just that damn good in close games. Let's move forward to Friday night football at the MCG, and yes, it is two of the best rivals in the game. We've got Collingwood taking on Hawthorn, 7:40 start at the G. Let's get stuck into it. Here are the ins and the outs. Yes, these are the ins and the outs. We start with the Collingwood Football Club. In comes Darcy Moore, their fearless captain, the former All-Australian, and the Premiership captain, of course, in 2023. In comes Scott Pendlebury, arguably the greatest ever Magpie of all time. Was it 418 games, something like that. Crazy what a great player he's been. In comes Bobby Hill after being laid out last week, similar to Scott Pendlebury in Sir Dudley Ground against North Melbourne. Neither of them played, of course. In comes Lachie Schultz after recovering from that concussion. And in comes Steele Sidebottom. Now, just alone there, let me consult my notes. That's like 1,000 games of experience coming in for the Magpies. Surely we'll hold them in good stead for tonight's encounter. Out goes Braden Maynard, suffering from plantar fascia injury. Out goes William Hayes. Out goes Oleg Markov. Out goes Will Parker. And out goes Mason Cox. On the Hawthorn side of things, in comes Jarman Impey. And out goes Cam McKenzie, who has been omitted. Now, recent history, I'm sure you're all aware of it. Hawthorn, the voice went up about 5 registers then. Hawthorn have knocked off Collingwood pretty much every time that I've watched them over the last 10 to 12 years. Really since that iconic preliminary final in 2011 when Luke Bowl kicked that goal with about 2 minutes left, just before Buddy Franklin kicked one of the best goals of all time, running along that pocket, dribbling along the boundary line. Hawthorn have owned Collingwood. Yeah, they really have. They've had such a strong record against the Magpies. Last year, in the pouring and driving rain at the MCG, Hawthorn smashed Collingwood. I mean, Hawthorn got the chocolates over them. Sorry, Collingwood beat Hawthorn earlier in the year in gather round, what was a really tight encounter to send Hawthorn to 0-5. But since that moment, Hawthorn have just been on this tidal wave of momentum that has been halted, though, in the last month. So I'm really excited to see how this one plays out. The line is 7.5 points the Magpies' way. Understandably, with Collingwood's form at the moment, they should be the favourites. The only thing I'll say for the Hawks is they've been close in a lot of these games, and they've just had maybe 20 minutes where they've switched off. Against Brisbane last week, they switched off just before halftime. I know Charlie Cameron kicked some brilliant goals, kicked 3 in about 5 minutes, but besides that period, Hawthorn weren't dominated for large portions of that game. It was a to and fro contest that ultimately was decided by a little bit of class over a 10 to 15 minute period. Collingwood, on the other side of things, they've just been so brilliant week to week in this competition. They beat everyone they should be beating. They lost a tight encounter to Geelong, but besides that, they've been pretty much faultless this season. Against North Melbourne last week, North put up a fight for 3 quarters, then the Pies blew them away in the 4th quarter, as they so often do. Who do you think's going to win tonight's game? Personally, I'm going to go with Collingwood just. The line of 7.5 suggests it will be a tight encounter, but I do think the way the Pies are playing right now means they'll get the wood over the Hawks. Get the wood and the chocolates. They're going to get all the presents tonight. In terms of a betting perspective, there's not too many things I'm in love with. I mean, there's some short odds on anytime goals, which you probably want to put in your multis due to the fact that these players are pretty consistent. Let's start with Bobby Hill from the Collingwood Football Club. Now, he's kicked a goal, I think, in 5 of his last 6 games. Didn't play last weekend, but it was a personal issue, so there's no injury worries with Bobby Hill. At $1.20, in what should be a dry encounter, I think that he's more than likely to kick a goal tonight. And for the Hawthorn Hawks, I don't mind Nick Watson, who's also $1.20 to kick a goal. He had 4 touches last week, and what was a really down performance for Nick Watson. I don't see that happening again. Even against a really strong Collingwood defense, I still like him to kick a goal. Potentially multiple goals, but I'm not that greedy. We'll stick with the anytime for tonight. And on the disposal side of things, I like this a little bit more. 20 plus touches for Steele Sidebottom. Now, Sidebottom was, I think, subbed out in his last game, and he didn't play last week due to management. So therefore, his numbers are a little bit skew-if in the last two weeks, when really he's been a 25-touch, 23-touch guy pretty much every single week. Played a strong inside midfield role to start the year. Has not played quite as many CBAs over the last couple of weeks, but I still love his ability to get the ball. At $1.35 or so, I think he's a strong option for 20-plus touches. As is Karl Amon from the Hawthorn Football Club. I think the only times he's gone sub-20 over the last 8 weeks was when he was concussed and he missed the entire last quarter. And I think the following 2 weeks, for his next game back from post-concussion, he hit 19 again. Now, often we see players with lingering concussion effects not dominating after a concussion. Well, since then, he's gone 30 and 29 touches. For $1.20, I love Karl Amon in most bet slips for tonight. Besides that, no one I really love. I liked Hill and Watson, particularly Hill, because the Hawks gave up 10 goals to small or medium-sized forwards last week. They gave up 4 to Archie, 3 to Charlie Cameron, 1 to Bailey, and 1 to Rayner. So therefore, I think that Bobby Hill will get his chances tonight, and I think Collingwood will just find a way to win. Let's move forward to Saturday afternoon, and it is at People's First Stadium on the Gold Coast. These are the ins and the outs. If I can get my sizing right here. In comes Ned Moyle, 2-ruck strategy for the Gold Coast Suns this weekend against Darcy and Jackson. And in comes Leonardo Lombard, their top pick, or one of their top picks from last year's draft. Out goes Malcolm Rosas, and out goes Ethan Reid. On the Fremantle side of things, in comes Joshua Draper, in comes Sean Darcy, and in comes one of my favourite players of all time, Mr. Nathan Fyfe. Out goes Alex Pearce, who somehow avoided a 3-match suspension, but then ended up injured days later. Out goes Isaiah Dudley, and out goes Cooper Simpson, who we all brought into our Supercoach sides last week. What dumb luck that was. Terrible. Unfortunately, he suffered an AC joint injury, will miss the next 10 weeks. Now, this game, I must mention, could have some significant weather impacts. Predicted to be between 20 and 25 millimetres of rain, according to the AFL weather report, which I saw yesterday. Now, 20 to 25, that's a big deviation. That could be a little bit of rain or a whole lot of rain. That's why the line is 16.5 points the Gold Coast Suns' way. Who do I like? I still like the Suns. This is only, if you can believe it, their 3rd home game this season. Now, the first game was against Essendon, which was cancelled on opening round, but this is their 3rd home game they've actually played this season. So they beat, I've got my notes here. Let me consult the notes for the first time in this podcast/YouTube show. Usually it's off the dome. I'm just that talented at it. Now, they beat Adelaide at home. They beat Sydney at home, but those are only 2 home games they've had so far. They've got a lot of home games coming up. The Gold Coast Suns have this potential to be a top 4 side this year. I think they get the job done against Fremantle up on the Gold Coast, but it will be a tight contest. Usually rain is a leveller, but if you hear what a lot of greats say this year, like Matthew Lloyd, even someone like on the Channel 7 broadcast, I forgot his name, Brian Taylor, he said, well, sometimes the rain, it makes the great players shine more. I mean, it's hard to mark the ball in the rain. Skills are sometimes a little bit lower. I mean, it's very slick sometimes. As you saw last night between Essendon and Brisbane, only the really skillful players can stand up, like McCluggage, Nick Martin, Zach Merritt. Therefore, I think the skill of the Gold Coast Suns, their great midfielders, and their well-functioning forward line will be slightly too much for Fremantle's slow, chip, sideways style, which can get you in trouble in the wet. You could be down 25 points. You need to go. You need to press go button, but somehow the button's broken and you can't go forward, and you get stuck 20 to 30 points behind for the entire afternoon. I'm a big Gold Coast Suns fan this year. They've played some great footy. They've stood up against decent sides. I think they will get the W in this one and another 4 points. Let's move forward to, betting-wise, nothing I really like in this game. If it's dry in Melbourne, go walk your dog. It's going to be better than watching a wet footy game. Listen to it in your ears. Maybe have it on the little KO and on the smaller screen. But no betting advice for this one. 4:15 will be the next game, and it is in Sydney, well, Western Sydney to be more exact. It is the GWS Giants taking on the Richmond Football Club. In for the Giants comes Josh Kelly, good to have him back, a star of this football club. In comes Toby McMullen, out goes Jacob Ware. Where is he? Well, he's playing in the VFL. Out goes Harry Ralston. In for the Richmond Football Club comes the triple premiership midfielder and former best and fairest Jack Dye medalist in Dion Prestia. In comes Tom Lynch after recovering from a delayed concussion. In comes their captain and triple premiership player, Nank the Tank, Mr. Toby Nankervis. In comes Tyler Sonsi. Out for Richmond goes Thompson Dow, who suffered injury, will be out at least 6 weeks. Out goes the number 1 draft pick and Sam Lawler, who suffered a hamstring injury. That sucks. Out goes Samson Ryan, and out goes Morris Rioli. Now, the line, if you can believe it, is 46.5 points the Giants' way. We expect the Giants to just roll here. I know Richmond got some good senior players back, but I think it's going to be very, very tough for Richmond to get close in this game. The Giants are just... They're a team that's hanging around the fringes of the 8. Every week I'm reading up with them, I'm like, nah, you're not good enough. You're going to miss the finals this year. You've got a few injuries. Things just aren't really working your way. They win. They beat Carlton at Marvel Stadium. They had a terrible record at Marvel Stadium in the past, but Carlton, well, they sometimes allow you to get victories when you probably shouldn't. Okay, that's just the reality of the Carlton Football Club. They're not quite consistent. The Giants are a little bit more consistent than them. That's why I have them just playing finals, but I have them winning this game big. I think the line of 50 will be covered. It's dry conditions as far as I can see. And in terms of betting, well, I don't love any of the disposals. All the odds are pretty poor for this one. We think Lockie Ash, Lockie Whitfield, Tom Green, they're all going to have 25, 30 touches. Well, unless you go for the 30s mark, you're not going to find any value in this game. The bookies know it could be an absolute belting. That is why, if you're looking for bets, you're looking for some betting advice, I'd look at Toby Green and Jesse Hogan to kick goals. So Jesse Hogan, 3 goals at $1.50. Seems the way that whenever I bet on him to kick 3-4 goals, he kicks 1. And when I don't bet on him, he kicks 7. But this is a really strong matchup. There's still no Noah Bolter for Richmond Football Club. That's why I like Jesse Hogan to kick 3 goals and Toby Green to kick 2 goals. They should be in amongst it. Kelly comes back in, which should affect Toby Green's centre bounce tendencies, maybe slightly, push him a little bit more forward. But I really do like Jesse Hogan to take control of this game and kick an absolute bag. Giants should win easy. Let's move forward to Saturday night football, and it is at the SCG. Oh, we've got a double header in Sydney. I hope all the people go from the Giants Stadium to the SCG and watch all the footy. This is rare you get 2 footy games in Sydney back to back. What's that? They're all going to be in Paddington, sinking beers? I'll probably do the same thing. These are the ins and the outs for the Sydney Swans and the Adelaide Crows. We start with Sydney and... Ooh, there's some interesting team changes for the Sydney Swans. If I can get them up right now. There they are. Lewis Malkin comes in. Justin McInerney returns from his suspension. And Caleb Mitchell comes in. Out goes Sam Weeks. Out goes Callum Mills. And out goes Oliver Florin. Obviously, their captain in Callum Mills is serving a 1-week suspension after the hit he dished out in last week's game. And for the Adelaide Crows, in comes Smithers, Brodie Smith. In comes their former captain and leading goal kicker all time in Taylor Walker. Out goes Rory Laird, who has been managed, and out goes Zach Taylor. The line for this one is 7.5 points the Crows' way. I find that a bit interesting. The Crows have been far, far better than the Sydney Swans this year. The Crows are probably knocking on the door of a top 4, end of season performance. Realistically, they're probably going to be from 5 to 8 just because their form hasn't been as strong away from home. But I do like the Crows in this one. The Swans are struggling. What's there to do that's special right now? For so long, the Swans, their one-wood, their hallmark, what made them so good week to week was pressure. They were the pressure kings. It was Papley, it was the likes of McInerney, it was Hayward. It was their smalls putting on pressure around the grounds. And then it was, Warner, it was Heaney around the ball saying, if you're going to kick it, you're going to kick it under pressure. That's gone. That's not there at the highest level when I say it's gone. It's still okay, but they were doing it at the highest level, which is why they would win week on, week out. Last week against the D's, it was so easy. The last quarter, the Swans laid down. The pressure did not exist. Will they bring it at home? I expect them to bring it at home, but I still think the Crows will be too good in this one. Their forward line functions so well. It functions so well now that they can afford to put Jordan Dawson down there for, half a game, and he still kicks goals and sets other people up. Midfield, well, interesting. So Laird's moved out of the midfield this year. Matt Crouch is injured. So it's been the likes of Saligo, Rankin playing in a more pronounced midfield role. Who else am I forgetting right now in their midfield? Obviously, Dawson goes in there from time to time. Their midfield just functioning better this year, so it allows their forward line to be so dynamic and so damaging, and the defence has held up pretty strongly this season against the Swans forward line, which has struggled to kick a score this season. I do like the Crows to take care of business in this one. From a betting side of things, Foggy 2+ goals. I know he might cop Melican or he might cop McCartan. McCutton's position week to week, we don't know. I think he might settle back in defence finally. Malcolm comes into this side, but I still like Darcy Fogarty to kick 2+ goals. He kicked 1 last week in that belting of West Coast. He's probably thinking, hey boys, you've all filled your boots. Give me the ball in this big high-stakes game on Saturday night footy. I think the fog will roll over the SCG and he kicks 2+ goals. Besides that, no one I really, really love. Anytimes Rankin and Keys, usually pretty consistent. Not absolute locks though, considering it's in Sydney. Adelaide tend to roll and really dominate teams at the Adelaide Oval. Disposals wise, no one I really love. I mean, Warner and Heaney are going to get their numbers. Will they absolutely go off? I'm not certain. Heaney had 38 disposals and 2 goals 5 last time he played the SCG, so we know he's going to be primed for this contest, but I'm probably just going to stick with Darcy Fogarty 2+ goals. Let's move forward to Sunday football. We're going all the way to the Northern Territory for Melbourne's one home game at Traeger Park for the season. It is the Melbourne Football Club taking on the St. Kilda Saints. These are the ins and the outs. In for Melbourne, well, we've got Jack Viney. He's the only certainty right now because it is Sunday squads. And out for St. Kilda, we've got Darcy Wilson. Now, I find that interesting because Darcy Wilson's a damn good player. He kicked a lot of goals over his first 2 seasons in the AFL. He was subbed out last week. Maybe it's more a management than an omission, even though it is listed as omitted, but I think he'll find his way back into the team in the not-too-distant future. As for Jack Viney, he suffered a delayed concussion against West Coast, was it? 2-3 weeks ago. He's missed 2 weeks with that concussion, but it appears he's on the flight to the Northern Territory and he will be fit to play in this game. The line, it's a little fishy, isn't it? It's 12.5 points. Considering how well Melbourne have played over the last month, with really good wins against the Swans, a really good win in Brisbane against the Brisbane Lions, surely it should be more than 12.5 points. Well, I will say one counterpoint to this. Melbourne lost this game by 92 points last year in their home ground of Traeger Park. They lost by 92 points to Fremantle. So there's a little bit of trepidation putting this line too high from the bookies. 12.5 though, I like it. I think Melbourne will cover this one. If you're doing your margin tips or your tips for, we're in a tipping comp, me and 3 of my great friends, where we tip the margin each week. So this was our lock of the week. Obviously, there's only 6 games, so there's not many options, but I do think Melbourne will easily win by 14 points if they are to win this game. In terms of matchups, I mean, Max Gawn versus Rowan Marshall is where my mind springs to. Max Gawn scored 180 Supercoach points against Rowan Marshall last year at the MCG. I think Gawn's probably 1 or 2 in terms of hit-outs to advantage, or just total hit-outs in general, raw hit-outs. Ron Marshall's one of the worst in the comp at it. He is second worst in terms of his hit-outs going to his teammates, behind only the great Matthew Flynn. So I do think if you're playing Supercoach and you need to put a C on someone after your VC on Lucky Neil failed last night, just me, then you put the C on Big Maximus Gawn. They should win. I can't tell you much about the teams right now, as it is Sunday squad. Betting advice, well, 2 players. There's 2 players I like. Decent odds as well. Keziah Pickett to kick 2+ goals. He's about $1.55. Last 3 weeks, 5 goals, 2 goals, 2 goals. He's in tremendous form. Now, the Saints traditionally have been a pretty strong defense. They don't give up huge scores, but I do think with the form that Pickett is in, particularly in the Northern Territory, there will be a lot of support for this great performer. Then I think that he will get 2 goals. And on the disposals side of things, I think Christian Petracca is almost a lock for 20 touches at $1.19, but you get decent value of $1.75 for 25+. You pick the way you want to play, but I think for your multis, maybe you put the 20 in for Petracca, and for your really short multis, maybe a same gamut, you put him for the 25. He's in decent form. There's no one from the Saints who's going to go out and stop him. I know Marcus Windhager has applied tags in the past, but is he going to flat out stop Christian Petracca? I do not think so. I'm yet to see it from anyone. No one can really tag the tractor. Okay, let's move forward to the final game of the round. And it is a night game in Perth, if you can believe it. It is a very late night game. I think it's 7:20 Melbourne time start. So what's that? 5:20 over in Perth. To give a bit of context, it is WA Day in Western Australia. A time of airing and recording. I'm unsure what WA Day is all about. If someone from WA can enlighten me and educate me, then that would be great. But it is WA Day on Monday, which is why it's a public holiday and we have a night game in Western Australia between the West Coast Eagles and the Geelong Cats. The line is quite large. It seems to have not printed off on this sheet, but I think it is 39.5 points. Do we see Geelong being tested in this one? I mean, the Cats have been so consistent for such a long period of time. These are the ins and the outs. In for West Coast, we've got Archer Reid, Bo Allen, Jack Williams, Job Shanahan, and Hamish Davis. And out for certain, we have Jake Waterman, who suffered a season-ending shoulder injury. He's went for surgery in the last couple of days. Sad to see an All-Australian from last year be out so early in the season. And out goes Bailey J. Williams, who has been managed. Maybe it's the Matthew Flynn legacy game. I sure hope so. On the Geelong side of things, you've got Connor O'Sullivan, Oliver Wiltshire, and George Stevens joining the extended bench. As I said, the line is 39.5 points, which is massive. But realistically, Geelong should cover that. I mean, West Coast are not a good football team so far. They've lost their best forward. We don't know what's happening with Oscar Allen. Sometimes he plays forward, sometimes he plays back, sometimes he doesn't play at all, and sometimes he's just thinking about, well, I'm probably going to sign a contract with Brisbane at the end of the year. Unfortunately, I'm going to leave this club. That's just the harsh reality of where Oscar Allen stands as the captain of the West Coast Eagles, and also one of their more talented players who hasn't had much of an impact in 2025. On the Cats side of things, we expect Bailey Smith to play, but it could be the old Chris Scott shenanigans because Tom Stewart was on the injury report 2 weeks ago and he was laid out. So Bailey Smith said he had 4 pain-killing injections last week before taking on the Western Bulldogs on Thursday Night Football. He has a nice 10-day break, but he does have a flight to Perth to overcome. Will he play? Well, if he gets on the plane, we're certain he will play. We'll find out probably tomorrow afternoon if he's flying to Western Australia. But I still like the Cats to take care of business. On the betting side of things, there's a few I like, actually. I quite like this game from a betting perspective. 20-plus touches, Max Holmes. Only $1.20, but geez, there's no one on the West Coast team that can tag Max Holmes out of this game. It should be a fill-up game for one of the best and hardest runners in the league. Also, I like Ryan Marrick to have 20-plus touches. Now, he had 20 last week, and he played full forward or centre forward for the last quarter, and he had 8 clangers in the first 3 quarters, which really brought down his Supercoach score and had us all thinking, geez, was this a flash in the pan? Is it time to trade Ryan Marrick? No. The answer is no. And I think he'll have 20-plus touches again because of the ins and the outs. It appears that the forward line is fine. Marrick is named in the back line. He's still going to have kickouts. Jeremy McGovern has been not sighted for 2-3 weeks. We hope he gets back on the football field. But if he doesn't, it only increases the role of Ryan Marrick for the rest of the season. He should have 20-plus touches and along with Max Holmes. On the goal scorer side of things, I don't mind Ollie Henry and Brad Close. Now, Ollie Henry is $1.33. He's been the sub before. He's been subbed out, but this presents a really strong matchup for the key forwards of the Geelong Football Club. He should be able to find his way to at least 1 goal. And Brad Close. Now, Brad Close hasn't been as good, I think, away from GMHBA Stadium, but he's a pressure forward. He finds a way to get amongst the goals. All it's going to take is one bad kick from the West Coast Eagles. Maybe even Ryan Marrick makes it. I don't want to say that. And Brad Close will find his way goal side with no one around him, and he can chip one over the top. I like both those players to hit anytime goals on Sunday Night Football. That's it. That's it for the preview for round 12. It is going to be a great round. I'm looking forward to heading down to the MCG tonight with 2 of my great friends in Alex and Marcus. And maybe we get a little bit of content done as well. Nothing promised, but I will say this. I will have a bag of Kit Kats, okay? Come find me. Slam Talk Sports. You know where to find me on Instagram and TikTok, and of course on YouTube as you're watching right now, all in your ears on Spotify. Every single Friday we will preview the round ahead and drop content throughout the week. It might be an interview with Matthew Lloyd. It might be a little interview with Ben Mackay. It might just be me talking about Supercoach and giving bad advice. Either way, make sure to check it out. Love you all. I'll see you soon. This was Slam. Enjoy the footy.